Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the July 2022 Firefighters Book Club. And today we're going to be hanging out with Joshua Chase, covering his book, Jump Seat Leadership. Announcements for the couple next months of the year. I apologize, I've been behind. It's fire season in California. We've been romping and stomping. I've been pretty busy. And everybody's on annual vacation, just like Josh is on vacation. So I've been getting force hired because everybody's on vacation right now. I've been working a ton. So technically right now, if you look at the schedule, I do not have a book scheduled for August. I'm going to be at FRI in San Antonio, and I'm going to blend my two shows together. I'm trying to get an episode of Firefighters and Fire Trucks Getting Ice Cream done while I'm out there with David Griffin, the engineer that was on duty the day that 9 in Charleston died. He's written a new book. He's actually written two prior to that, and his new book is Tattoos and Trauma. So we've already kind of had some discussions. If I can't get Firefighters and Fire Trucks Getting Ice Cream done with him, I'll get it done with somebody else. And then I'm going to try to do Firefighter Book Club out there in August with him, kind of like a live session at FRI. So if nothing else, I would prepare for that. Purchase Tattoos and Trauma. You can get it on Amazon from David Griffin. I don't even have it in my hands yet to show you, but that's probably going to be the book for August. The book for September, kind of a September 11th tribute. We're going to be covering Notes from the Fireground from Tommy Dunn from FDNY. So that's a September book. I believe that's on the 7th of September at the normal time, I believe. And then I just talked to Frank Viscuso yesterday. We had a long chat, about an hour, because once you get on the phone with Frank, it takes that long. But his new book that just came out, Flashpoint, actually talking about team building. This is his 9th book that he's written, so I'm really looking forward to hanging out with Frank. His book is really going to connect to mine really well because my new book, when it comes out, Strategy and Tactics for Employee Fires, taking fireground terminology and applying it to human performance. His new book actually takes the stages of teams, like we normally talk about storming, forming, norming, and all that kind of stuff, and applying it to the different phases of fire behavior. So from the incipient phase to the growth phase to the flashover, which would be the storming, all the way through the decay stage. So it's I'm really looking forward to that one. It's right up my alley and some of the stuff that he's doing, and always it's good stuff from Frank. So that book, Flashpoint, it just came out on Amazon literally like this last week. So I was like, Frank, called him up and I was like, I got to get you on the book club. And he goes, no, I want to be on Firefighters and Fire Trucks Getting Ice Cream. And I go, I know, but let's get the book club done first. So last but not least, I know this one is on the book club reading list coming up. We just haven't been able to schedule it. Jason's been actually overseas on vacation. He's gone. But Jason is going to be coming on doing the new company officer. I know that's on the list, but we just haven't scheduled it yet. And then the reality of PTSD when children die. This is actually one of my instructors at Red Helmet Training just came out with a book. I don't know when we're going to be able to squeeze it in, but it's pretty good stuff. He was the lead fire investigator in Long Beach and had 2 kids die in a garage fire that was converted into a living area. And pretty tragic story. I admit I cried a couple times reading this one. It was pretty rough. So we're probably going to have Pat Wills come on and do his book, When Children Die. And then last book announcement, and again, I'm going to blend my two shows together. I recently got a chance to do an episode of Firefighters and Fire Trucks Getting Ice Cream out at the Bernasini Command Training Center in Phoenix, Arizona, and I got to hang out with Nick Bernasini for a while doing an episode of the Ice Cream Show. But a crazy thing that I found out while I was there is while they were going through his dad's stuff in the garage, they found boxes and boxes and boxes of Fire Command first edition in boxes in his garage. They are selling them on bshifter.com on their website. I think they're like 130, but for those of you on the book club that are collectors like Mike Richardson, some of those guys, these are literally brand new in the box mint condition first editions of Fire Command by Al Bernasini. So I picked up several while I was there. I'm not going to let that go to waste. And they also got the rights back as far as customer service. So these are back in print. So all of you that are out there trying to sell these for $150 on eBay or whatever, those days are done. These are back in print. Sorry. And I grabbed like 2 dozen of them while I was out there. So Bruno Customer Service is back in print. They still have Anatomy and Physiology of Leadership, which is a fantastic book, kind of talking about just the different parts of the body and how it applies to leadership, all the way to the spine, having courage and all that stuff. So I'll probably see if I can have Nick come on and do Anatomy and Physiology. He actually co-wrote that with his dad. So I'll talk to Nick about coming on here sometime next year, maybe for April, around Bruno's birthday, April 18th. That would be kind of cool. We'll see if we can set that up. But that's some of the stuff going on. I'm trying to keep like cool books for you, using the power of connections to get with these authors. Sometimes it's been working out. We've got some really cool authors on here with some great books, and it's been really exciting. And we're going on year 2 here shortly. So it's been a fun ride. Okay, so let's turn it over to Joshua Trace. Good morning, Josh. What's up, buddy?
Morning. How you guys been?
Good. So you're on vacation right now, huh?
Yeah. I usually take about 3 weeks during the summertime. So I don't take too much leave during the year, but I always take a good amount during summer to spend time with the family. But the family's all doing stuff today, so I'm doing this.
Where are you guys vacationing at?
So we were in Lake Gaston last week, North Carolina. We were there for about a week. And then with 3 weeks off, we usually go away for a week, come back for a week. And then this weekend, we're going away again. I turned 40 on Friday. So nice. We're going away for a weekend to hang out and paddleboard and jump in the water and just sit next to a fire and really, hopefully, just do a whole lot of nothing all weekend.
So you're in North Carolina. I didn't even have to bring Dave on the thing today. He could have met you out there, and he could have bothered you out there instead of coming on here.
Yeah, well, I'm back. I'm back in Virginia Beach now.
Okay.
But yeah. I'm only about an hour and 10 minutes from North Carolina, so not that far away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited. I got some teaching coming up in Virginia, so maybe I'll come find you. I'll be Fairfax and then Louisa, out with Tony Carroll and stuff. So I got some stuff coming up in October, so maybe I'll see you out there. But
yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about, this is not your first book, right?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. So how many have you written now?
So I think that's number 8.
Number 8.
Yep. That's number 8. That's definitely my most successful book so far, which I don't ever write like, oh man, I hope this one is successful. I just kind of write and put it out, and then whatever happens, happens. But this one really hit the ground running. I wasn't expecting it, but it did. I mean, guys grabbed it. Next thing I knew, I was like, okay, well, maybe I should have some of these at the house. Maybe I should sign a few, send them out. And next thing you know, I was getting messages. I've talked to some other people, started the Facebook page just as a way to kind of like communicate with people. And it's kind of just taken off. And I was not expecting it at all. But it's been a good thing. I think it's been a good thing for me. It's been encouraging for me. It's been encouraging to see other people resonate, with the words that are in there, because it makes some of the stuff that I've been through not feel like it wasn't wasted. Some of the lessons that I learned, some of them are hard lessons, but when you teach other people, it almost makes it more worth it.
Yeah. Well, we've talked about it in Writer's Block before. Like, even when you say like, yeah, it's been pretty successful, you're not going to get rich writing a book. You're doing it because, you love to get the message out there, and we all know that. So
yeah,
a lot of us on the book club are authors as well, and so even when people say, "Oh, it's a successful book," I made a little bit of money. I can go buy a cup of coffee for sure.
And that's exactly what I mean. Like, by successful, I mean like a couple people have bought it. More people have bought this book than have bought the other books that I've written. I'm definitely gonna be a fireman for at least another 10 years. I think, so, not leaving.
Yeah. So before we dive into this one, what's some of the other books that you've written?
So I wrote a book called Take the Lead, and it was just a guide to taking ownership of your life. I wrote that back in 2018. I wrote that one after I lost my first wife when I was 32 years old. And I wrote that kind of after I went through a rough time with just being a single dad, raising my kids alone. And it just, for me, I really had to take ownership of my life and figure out where I was going so I could lead my kids well. So I wrote that back in 2018 after I went through some challenging stuff with just, working in the fire service as a single dad with 3 kids with, not an ex, just no help. I had, family here, but, no wife here. So challenging season. But for me, it was just about ownership. And I included a little bit of my military career, fire department career in there. But the whole book theme is about just owning your circumstances and where you're at and just moving forward from there. I wrote the other work. Wrote the workbook off of Jump Seat Leadership just because I wanted guys to be able to take it a step further. So I wrote Jump Seat Leadership, and then I kind of read through it after I wrote it more than once, and I was like, man, I feel like there's something else here. So I wrote a workbook to help people work through their goals. I felt like Jump Seat Leadership was kind of like hey, super encouraging, punch in the face, and then it was like, what do you do next? Right. And I wanted to give guys something to do next, so I did that. My first book I actually wrote back in 2013. 2013, I wrote my first book. I went through some stuff with my first wife, and super challenging. Had nothing to do with the fire department at all. It had everything to do with we'd been married 7 years, got married really young, and we split, and then came back together. And it just it was really pretty much faith-based on how we got back together, and our family got back together. Our family was restored. So I wrote a book because I don't know if anybody knows this. The fire department divorce rate's pretty high. And we don't know that. Yeah. So and me and my wife, we went through some challenging stuff and we made it. So I was like, well, I guess I should put something out, just to let other people know that like, hey, my situation is not your situation, but it's possible, to work through things. So that was my first one. And really, I've always been writing. It's always been like a hobby of mine, but I was just sitting down with a lot of people sharing, and, they would leave encouraged. And I was like, well, how can I just reach more people? So really what happens now is if I go through something that I think can help other people, I just put it on paper. I'll put it on paper. And for me, it's short reads. I'll just do anywhere from 100 to 150 pages. That's what I found to be effective. I mean, for what I write, I'm an encourager by that's one of my gifts, is just to encourage. So, encouraging somebody for 3 hours, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can do that, but I can encourage you for 20 minutes, or an hour read. And that's really what I started doing. So, some of them are faith-based, some of them are military career, some of them are fire department, but the Jump Seat Leadership was the one that, like I said, successful, but Jump Seat Leadership is really the one to just gain traction out of nowhere. And, it was encouraging for me because I have written a bunch of other books. And I'm not trying to make it big as an author. I'm just trying to share and get the message out. So for it to just naturally gain traction with, I'll just throw some stuff on Facebook every now and then and promote here and there. But I don't have a marketing degree. I don't have any advice on marketing. It, like you said, and you guys are authors too, like it's really, you just have to be about getting the message out. And if you sell one book, then one guy says it's great, then you almost got to be okay with that. Like, oh, that's cool. Somebody liked my book,
Well, hopefully bringing you on the show, you at least sold 5. So
yeah. No, I sold a couple. I mean, it's up and down. It's crazy. I mean, 1 month I've had months where I've sold 200 books, and then the next month I'll sell 2 books, right. So like I said, I'm not retiring for at least another 8 years.
Well, and I could just assume, like out of Norfolk, I know Jared Sergi pretty well. There's probably this big chicken the egg thing where it's like, well, which came first, Joshua Chase or Jared Sergi, as far as inspiring each other back and forth? And,
right.
And, is Jared one of the in the picture on there? Is that?
Yeah. Yep. So that's him. Yeah. So we worked together. We grew up in the same firehouse. We became firemen together. We shared it. We both came from the military. We sat at the same galley table, our first years in the fire service. We worked for a super motivated captain. We took our military motivation and poured it into the fire department. And, those guys are still family. We just created a family. And, we still, like, Jared's I consider my brother. His kids call me Uncle Josh. And, when my kids were younger, they called him Uncle Jared. Now kids don't think that's cool. My kids are older now, but so no, it was great. So we're back and forth. We talk regularly, we bounce stuff off each other. We work for the same department. Yeah. He's always been like my big brother. He's gotten promoted before I have in a lot of situations. So I'm always going to him. If I always say, complain to healthy people that want to fix the problems. And Jared's my person to complain to, and I'm his person, because we're usually complaining to fix problems. You got the people that are just complaining. And I'm a great complainer, but I usually want to bring a solution to the table. So he's been great. I mean, he really has. He's helped me a lot out. A personal level too. We've been there for each other's families, and fire department, and I'm spoiled. He lives 10 minutes
Right.
from me.
Right.
So if you're in town, you probably get us both.
Yeah. Well, I've been to his house.
Yeah,
It's somehow we always end up at Jared's house when I'm
yeah.
at Virginia Beach or something. But
Well,
yeah.
he's good for that too. If you're in town, he'll have everybody over. He's Jared is a gatherer. He's a connector.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, glad you guys have that influence on each other, and I agree. You have to have somebody that you can bounce stuff off of,
Yeah.
somebody that can be a sounding board, but at the same time give you good advice. So I'm glad that's going on. So diving into your book, like right off the bat, for you to be a jump seat leader, you talk about you have to acquire knowledge, like right up front. What's some of the stuff that you think are key components as far as the knowledge you need to have under your belt, if you will, to be the jump seat leader?
Yeah, so I think first thing is you have to be open to learning, coachable, teachable. Those are the main things. When I came into the fire department, I had just come back from military deployment, flew around in helicopters and did some cool stuff with some special forces Marines, but that didn't mean anything. When I got into the fire department, it was respect as far as like, hey, that's cool, you're in the military, but I didn't know anything about the fire department. I didn't grow up around it. I wanted to help people. The fire department seemed like a great place to do it. I wasn't the kid that grew up and was like, I want to be a firefighter and followed fire trucks around. I don't have that story. My story was I want to help people and I want to do it in public safety. I joined the military and then I joined the fire service. So for me, acquiring knowledge was huge. And that was probably my first, and I'm still learning. I'm 17 years on the job. I'm still learning, but just being open to what other people had to say. I did a lot on my own. There's a lot of people that just, oh, I'm just going to leave this here. I'm only a fireman 10 days a month. I don't think that's possible if you actually want to succeed in being a firefighter. And I don't mean succeed in like getting promoted someday, or I mean succeed in like we took an oath to be the best we can be for the citizens that we serve. And, I'm not saying don't take a vacation, but if you want to get better, 10 days a month isn't going to cut it. And back then I was reading books. We're watching YouTube videos. Like I said, me and Jared grew up together in the fire service. We're watching stuff. We're doing size ups. And it wasn't fake. We loved it. This was our job. This is what we did, And I had a captain that was super motivated. I was just open to learning from him. That doesn't happen everywhere. And if you have a captain or officer or a guy who's not into training, like you can't just put it on him. You got to find a way to acquire this knowledge. I mean, I took college classes. There was a book out. I read it. There's a magazine at the station. I opened it. There was a guy that had been in 5-6 years longer than me. I picked his brain. I mean, we used to drive the senior guys nuts when we were young. We'd find a 25-year guy and be like, tell us a fire story. We wanted knowledge. And for me, I just wanted some knowledge to build my career on. Like I needed a basic good foundation. Like if you're thinking about building a house, foundation's crappy, the house is eventually going to be crappy. And thankfully for me acquiring knowledge, I was like, I just need a good base foundation of this job so I can build on it over my career. And so I think if you're going to be a jump seat leader or, just a guy that rides in the back, not promoted, whatever you want to do, this is advice for anybody, just acquire some knowledge and stick to the basics. If you want to be an advanced firefighter, you can't do any of that unless you know the basics, so that's the biggest thing is basics.
It's pretty amazing. I was hanging out with John Salka and we were discussing one of his very first firehouses in New York was a slow station. And he was upset about it at the beginning. He's like, these guys, they don't want to train. They don't want to do anything, and after a while, he started figuring out like these guys have earned that spot on the job. They've been here a long time. And after he started talking to them, it was amazing the jobs they've been on, the fires they've been on. Mm-hmm. And he goes, but I had to ask them. I had to pick their brain. They weren't shoving it down my throat. And if you want to be a jump seat leader or just a good firefighter, don't take those senior members for granted and forget to ask them like, hey, and they'll give it to you. They love to give you that stuff if they can. You got to ask. And the other one is like you said, that the transfer of knowledge and the transfer of experience. The fire service is very fickle, if you will, about that. Like, hey, your military stuff doesn't mean squat here, which we know it does. Right. But we want to make it known, like, look, you that transfer of knowledge won't come until you know about us first.
Absolutely.
I took a lateral captain's test from one fire department to another, and during the testing process, we had to do a biographical sketch, draw like a living resume on a flip chart and discuss ourselves. And I did this thing called stepping stones, and I showed like all the things that I've done to actually become a captain at my previous fire department. And on the top of that page, there was also a bridge. And I said, so I've crossed this to the other side of the river once already, but unfortunately I'm coming to a new fire department and there's going to be trolls under that bridge and they don't want me to use that bridge. I had to start over. Just because
Right.
you're a captain at this other fire department, you have to learn about us before you think you know anything.
Yeah.
And even though, yeah, you bring a lot of experience and leadership and everything else from the military, you still gotta get buy-in from the department before you can use it. So it's
Yeah. I was a
kind of
rookie.
right.
I get to my station and I'm like, they were like, that's great that you flew around in helicopters behind a gun, but drag that hose
Right.
line
Yeah,
through the station with your hood over your mask, and
yeah,
we're going to drain your bottle down till you can't breathe, and then we'll switch out. And to me, I mean, I needed it. It's humbling, to be in something. It's a new enemy, right? Like, yes,
right.
I was at war, and this was the enemy. Well, there's nobody. Fire doesn't shoot at you.
Yeah,
It's
and you don't get to shoot people here.
no, so it's
Right.
completely different. So it's like it's new job, new enemy. And I was like, well, if I want to be good, I need to learn my enemy.
Yeah.
And the enemy can be you if you are not coachable or teachable. You can be your own worst enemy coming into this job thinking I got it all figured out. But
Well, and that leads us to the second chapter, right? So experience needed, right? The
yeah,
knowledge is great, but really
right.
when it comes down to it, you're not going to really get that buy-in from the other crew members until you gain the experience and you
Yeah.
can show that, right? So what's some of the things that you like kind of walk through in the book, like where you start talking about experience is really the key to gaining to the next level of jump seat leadership?
Yeah. So I thought, I guess when I probably had about 3-4 years in, I mean, I was like, man, I'm hot shit. Like, I've been in a couple years. Like, I'm not a rookie anymore. We're going to fires pretty regularly. We run a combination department. We do EMS too. So it's 12 hours on a box, 12 hours on a fire truck. I've been to a ton of gunshots by that point, stabbings. I thought, I got it. I have a really good grasp on this job. And I was still building my foundation. I was still gaining my experience. And so nobody was coming to me for anything like, hey, you've been in 3-4 years. Let me get some advice from you. And I wasn't looking for people to come to me, but I thought at 3-4 years, like, okay, I'm doing pretty good. I got moved stations and there were some more senior guys there. At about 6 years in the department, they moved me and they kind of put me in my place, which was great for me. I got over there and I kind of came over with a chip on my shoulder, and these guys that was about 6 years for me. They'd been in about 20 years and they had experience. When they started talking about jobs they've been to or things that they've done or things that they were struggling with because they couldn't sleep over a certain call, or they actually had experience, and me listening to their experience and gaining knowledge through that, like some of it, like it was immediate respect. I was like, oh, like you said, like you ask questions, you find out why guys are the way they are instead of why is this guy taking a nap from 1 to 5.
Right.
You find out that this guy's been in 30 years, and it's crazy that he's even still in the fire department with some of the stories that he's telling. So I guess over the years, I probably got to 10 years, 11 years, and in my department, you can get promoted at 6 years. So when I originally joined, you could get promoted at 4 years. So I look back, I took a test at 4 years just to take it. Didn't plan on getting promoted at the time. Took another test at 6 years. I think Jared got promoted at the 6-year mark. A lot of my buddies got promoted before me. So I rode the back for 15 years pretty much. And so I felt like, which is why I decided to write this book. Like at 15 years, I was like, I think I have enough experience still learning, but as a firefighter where I can share things that I've been through stuff with other people, but I really feel like, not like, hey, look at me, but I rode the back for 15 years and I felt like I have a good base knowledge of what I can do, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at, what I need help with, what experiences I need to share with other people, what mistakes have I made, so I think it's probably different for everybody. A lot of people, like I said, everybody went and got promoted, and I was 15 years still riding the back, and I had buddies that had promoted for 5 or 6 years. But for me, I don't want to say I was comfortable, because I wasn't comfortable in the sense where, oh, I know it all, but I felt like I had a good level of experience to where I could come into work every day. I knew how to do my job. For the most part, the officer wasn't, very little supervision. I was okay with speaking up if I needed to say something, training some of the younger guys, but you need that experience, and experience, I think it just takes time. And we don't want to wait for stuff, and sometimes we were like, hey, well, I've been here this long or that long. And there's a whole lot of debates about seniority these days. And I have my own opinions on that stuff, but just because you've been in 20 years doesn't mean you're senior as far as experience goes either,
Right.
and you may not have a senior attitude. I think there's a whole, you could do a whole other show about that, but
Oh, for sure.
yeah, experience is huge, but I think it took me a long time to where I felt like I had the experience where I could, I wouldn't have written a book called Jumpsuit Leadership in 2 years in the fire department.
Right. Right.
It took me 15 years to do that.
Well, and even the senior leadership you're talking about, that connects to the maturity piece that you talk about. Really, that's the triangle, right? You gotta have the knowledge, you gotta have the experience, and then the maturity to take those two things and actually do the right thing with it. It's almost like a superpower. It's like you've been given these things, but to use it, you got to use it wisely. You got to have that maturity.
So true, though.
Yeah. So really, what were some of the linchpin, the things that came over where it's like, okay, maturity was a big deal to cross over to being that informal leader?
Yeah. So, man, I was just young and dumb when I got in the fire department. I was young, back from my military deployment. Like I said, chip on my shoulder, not real mature. I got married young, had my kids young. So everything was like grow up fast for me. I had my first daughter when I was 18. I was, married at 21, deployed at 22, in the fire department. Like everything came so fast, and it's like I didn't have time to grow up. So there was no maturity. I was just going through things. So I grew up in the fire department, and I learned a lot of hard lessons. And probably at year 10 is where I started to realize that I have a lot of experience, like we talked about. I have a lot of knowledge, and my maturity level is not where it needs to be if I'm ever going to look at getting promoted. And I tell a story in the book about a senior guy that kind of set me straight. I did have a little bit of time in, and I went to his station, and the guys there were great, but they needed some leadership. And I could have stepped up to lead them, but I was like, I'm just going to be one of the guys. And this senior guy kind of called me out. And we butted heads every single day because he knew who I was and I knew who he was. He came in and I was like, this is my station, but I wasn't handling it the way that I should be. He came in with 23 years in and was like, this is your station. It needs to be your station. We had words. He called me out. He's like, these guys need leadership. You're not giving it to them. You just want to be one of the guys. It's time for you to grow up. You're avoiding taking the test. You're comfortable with where you're at. I don't want to hear any of this stuff. It was nice to come to work, know my job, be counted on, not have to be responsible as far as administration goes, and just hang out with the guys. And he pretty much told me in not so kind words, you need to grow up. And we probably didn't talk for a month after that. We worked together, same firehouse, and we didn't talk. We were in each other's face in the galley one afternoon after lunch, just going back and forth. The captain looked at both of us, shaked his head, and walked out. And I was like, what am I doing right now? Like, one, this guy's got a lot of time and I have a lot of respect for him. And I'm in his face. He's in my face. He's almost like a dad figure that's just yelling at his son, trying to tell him to get it together. I obviously have some growing up to do because I'm in here like I'm a big dog and I'm not,
right.
And I couldn't sleep. And I found out I was getting transferred in the midst of that quarrel with this other member. And I was like, well, great. The way transfers go in our department is you just may not see that guy again for 2 years, depending on shift work and days off. And I was like, I can't sleep now. I gotta resolve this. So I went to him and I apologized, one day at the station. And he started crying. I was like, not sobbing, but he got teary eyed. And I was like, hey, I just want you to know I'm sorry. You're right. I am kind of avoiding things and I do need to grow up. And I think I'm just going to take the test and just move forward. I think it's time. And he got all teary eyed and he looked at me and he's like, just take the next step. I'm not getting on you because I don't care about you. Just take the next step. And that was kind of like my, we weren't super close all our years in the fire department. He just came to the station. He took me under his wing for 6 months to a year. And I think he really helped me just grow up. He saw that I had the experience. He saw that I had the knowledge. He saw that I was, motivated about the job. And he's like, you're missing the whole maturity piece. And I didn't like when he told me that, and then when he got teary-eyed, I got teary-eyed. I was like, now we're at work, and we're in here. We're both teary-eyed. Somebody could walk in here any moment. Like, we're the two alpha males in the station. We can't sit in here and cry, and then somebody else walks in the room. They're like, are you crying? Lunch is ready. And we're like, we're not crying. So yeah, the maturity thing for me, it was, and I think it's different for everybody. Some people are naturally more mature, or some people have been through things. And, like I said, I had to grow up fast and the maturity piece was lacking. Now, once we kind of had that meeting, I changed some things. I became coachable again. I became teachable again. I started treating people like, okay, they need leadership. Like, I need to be there for them. This isn't about me, because it was selfish to come to work and think, oh, well, I'm at a good place in my career. I just come to work, do my job, and go home. I'm good at what I do. If people need me, I'm here. But I really started kind of pouring into people, and more of like the servant leadership kind of stuff that's out there. I really started to take on that role. And he helped me grow up. Like I said, it took me a hard lesson and a hard conversation, but we still keep in touch. He randomly texted me 2 weeks ago. He's like, just want you to know I'm proud of you. For me, that's huge.
Yeah,
because senior member that's getting ready to walk out of here and retire, like I don't need medals and all that stuff. But for a guy that really looked at me and said, hey, it's time for you to move up. He was there standing in the back at the promotional ceremony. I'm getting pinned and he's in the back of the room. It's like a scene in a movie.
Right.
But it was great to have him there. And maturity is a big thing. And I think a lot of people want title, a lot of people want rank, a lot of people want all these things, but like you said, it's almost like a weird triangle. One does not work without the other, or won't be as strong without the other anyway.
Well, and you got to fix the maturity piece before you take that next step and promote. You can't be the person that was, playing pranks around the station and doing stupid stuff. And then it's like, oh, I got promoted and now I got to like flip a switch, because they're going to call you out on that. If you're the captain or the lieutenant that's trying to say, hey, we can't do that here, or you're not allowed to do that. And it's like, you were just doing that last week before you got promoted, Right. So you got that. That is a huge piece to first off being a leader from the jump seat. But if you want to be a leader in the future, you got to be a leader while you're in the jump seat. It's not just something you can make the switch. And the maturity piece is also when like you said, he came to you and said, it's time for you to step up. It's time to take the next step. When you show that you have all three of those things in the triangle, it's pretty amazing that people start coming to you and saying, hey, when are you taking the promotional test?
Right.
It's not, they're going to come to you and say, hey, it's time. Right. And the maturity also goes to one of your other chapters where it talks about your captain needs you. Not the captain doesn't need you just to take stuff off his plate and projects and things like that. The captain needs your help running his ship and not giving him problems that he doesn't need, or getting blindsided by stuff. Over the last 3 weeks at work for me, my crew is usually like solid. I love my crew, but for some reason over the last 3 weeks, I've just been blindsided after blindsided by different stuff.
Right.
And I literally like printed up a poster and put it on the dry erase marker board the other day, and it was just titled, "Tell the Captain." If you're sick, injured, tired, in pain, exhausted, whatever, tell the captain. If something is lost, damaged, broken, stolen, tell the captain. If you're dealing with somebody or something above your pay grade, tell the captain. I listed all these things because I'm like, you guys are killing me right now. Like, this is like the inbox from hell that you guys have given me over the last 3 weeks too. So the maturity piece and understanding what your company officer needs from you, and it's more than just, well, just do your job and unload the dishwasher. Keep them informed, take care of business, and be those informal leaders. That's what they need from you when it all comes down to it. That goes to that next chapter, right? Your officer needs you. And what's some of the key components that you talk about in there as far as what a jump seat leader does for their officer? And now that you're an officer, you see it firsthand.
Yeah. So definitely. And that's one of the things, like, I really do believe this. I say it all the time, but informal leadership, to me, it is the backbone of the fire service. We do have, officers, but they have a job. They do have a supervisory role. And great, they were firefighters at one time, good or bad. They got promoted for whatever reason, good or bad. They're good or bad officers. Well, just by numbers, we have more firefighters than officers than we do in every department. It's just the way supervision works. So for me, like you said, I had a little bit of experience in the military. I didn't use it right away, but the military is huge on informal leadership. You don't bring things to the platoon sergeant or the first sergeant. It is, you have an E2, then you have an E3, then you have an E4, then you have an E5. There's a rank structure that you kind of follow. And you go to the next rank and you bring it to them. If they can't fix your problem, you go to the next guy. If they can't fix your problem, you go to the next guy. So not everybody has this knowledge or training in the fire department. It was not common knowledge like it is in the military. And I say common knowledge in the military because that's the rank structure. That's just the way it's designed. So in the fire department, you usually have a huge group of firefighters, depending on what department you work for. So the department I work for is you could have 20 years in, or you could have 2 years in. You're a firefighter. That's what your shirt says. There's really no rank structure. And then you have officers. So for me, informal leadership, finding that guy in the station that has a decent relationship with everybody, has a good pulse on what's going on, is good at his job, has been around a little while, doesn't mind sharing some knowledge. So, and he may not even know he's an informal leader. A lot of guys are informal leaders and they just don't know it, because all an informal leader is, it's just a guy or girl that's leading. They just don't have a title, and then we just call it informal leadership so we can write books and I can start a Facebook page. Right. But,
right.
But really that's all it is. It's just, hey, this guy is a natural leader. The crew follows him. He's training people on a daily basis and he's not doing it to look great or because he wants to get promoted. That's what this guy is naturally doing. And I started doing that during my career because I waited so long to get promoted. I was like, well, I'll just be the informal leader for the officers. Whatever they need, I'll take care of it. As a rookie, I'll do it. I'll take care of it. Whatever the officer, wants me to do, I'll handle what I can. And I didn't handle it all right either. There are plenty of people that I work for where I thought I could do it better, or, informal leadership sometimes can be threatening to an officer that's not leading, so there's that whole piece too. But for me now as an officer, the first thing I do when I get to a new station is I observe. I walk in and I'm like, hey, I already have a reputation. I've been around 17 years. So some guys have made up their mind before I even got there, but I like to observe and I like to figure out who's in charge, because it may not be the captain. Right. So I look around and I'm like, who's the informal leader in this house? Because we're going to be friends, whether I like it or not, because this guy has a good pulse on what's going on. And it can go the other way too. There can be a leader in that house that's not leading people in the right direction. But I also need to know who that is too, because we're still going to be friends, because I'm going to try and turn them to the dark side of good leadership. Right. So it's so important. I felt like I was doing it for my officers when I was, a firefighter. I hate saying I'm not a firefighter. It's so weird to me because I really am, right. But it's so important. And when I got to my new station, the first thing I did was like, who's in charge? We're messing with the guys one day and they were like, what do you mean who's in charge? You and the captain. I was like, nah, who's in charge? And a couple of the young guys, like 2 years in, are like, well, Ben usually takes care of this. When he starts listing off what Ben does, I was like, okay, Ben's in charge of you guys. Yeah. So, and Ben happens to be my driver. So I go to Ben. Sometimes I don't even go to the guys. Sometimes the guys come to the office and I'm like, before you open your mouth, you understand that I have to handle this as an officer as soon as you say something. So if it's not a safety issue, or, somebody's not asking you to skin a cat out back or kick a dog, then can Ben handle it? Sometimes it's no. And I'm like, okay, cool, sit down. But sometimes they look at me, they turn around, they don't say a word, and then they don't come back to the office. And, maybe Ben will come back to me and be like, hey, I handled some stuff today, but for me, it's huge. I don't think you could run a station without guys that are under you and helping you out. Like you said, I mean, it's always, I need them to know my job when I'm off. I need them to act in my position. I need them to do what I would have done, because the way it works in my department is if you're off and something happens, you're still in trouble because you fostered that culture and right. It wouldn't have happened. So, it's not easy, because like I said, a lot of guys are like, what the hell is informal leadership? I'm like, well, it's a fancy term for you're actually in charge and you just didn't know it. But
Right.
yeah, it's huge. It's huge. And I do believe it's the backbone of the fire service. I mean, company level leadership is good, but if you got that one guy in your house that, he's leading and you can't develop a relationship with him, you might be going the wrong direction. Some people just follow orders to follow orders, but I'll be honest, this is not the military. The fire department is not the military. And I hear it all the time. Oh, it's paramilitary. And I'm like, it's not, because you'd have been fired or you'd have been at Fort Leavenworth for that. Or they would have taken money out of your paycheck, or somebody would have been here to arrest you this afternoon. This is the fire department, and I love it for the fire department, but it's not the military.
Or if nothing else, you'd be doing more push-ups and sit-ups than you really want to do, right?
Yeah. I laugh. I'm like, hey, nobody's shooting at us today, so you could stop complaining.
Yeah.
It's not, but it is what it is.
If you were in the military, you're not allowed to complain, so just stop.
Right.
Yeah.
What rank are you? No, you can't. Not allowed to complain yet.
With the book that I'm writing right now, like I look at that second person in command, whether it's the engineer or the driver, or even just a firefighter that really is your second in command. I talk about preventing fires. You have smoke detectors. This is stuff that alerts you to smoke or fires in the firehouse.
Right.
And then that person that is your second in command, that's a suppression system. Their job is to put out small little fires and notify the fire department, the company officer, or to keep those in check at least until I get there. So I always want to make sure that I train my engineer to understand, like, look, you are second in command. You should be handling the small stuff on your own. You should be handling a little bit bigger stuff, and then just let me know about it. And at the same time, it might be something like, hey, I handled a pretty decent fire today, Cap, and I just want to let you know about it just to keep you in the loop, you know, and hopefully they didn't overstep their bounds, but you're trying to teach them to kind of handle that stuff. So yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. And I'm almost like, now, I mean, I'm a lieutenant, I'm not a captain. I work for a captain. So I've had to like take a lot. I'm still not in charge. I still work for a boss. So I've had to even continue with the, like you said, second in command. It wasn't like I got promoted and I was like, yeah, I moved up. I don't have my own firehouse. So I'm still, I'm an officer, but I use a lot of informal leadership stuff that I did before. Like you said, if you're not leading prior to being promoted, it's a rough switch. You know, and for me, I was like, well, I was already doing this. And that's why the gentleman called me out. He's like, you're already doing this. So why don't you just take the test and actually do it and be good at it instead of just riding the back of the truck, So
just in that lieutenant spot, you just might have more influence over, into the captain, in the informal.
And that's
leadership.
what it is. Yeah, there's a little bit more influence, and they give you a lot of more paperwork. I don't think that's a word, a lot of more, but
a lot of more paperwork. It is for sure.
Yeah, so it's a
whether
lot.
It's a word or not, there's a lot of more paperwork.
Yep, a lot of more paperwork, and I have closed door meetings with the captain that happen just because we work together. That I may not have. There's a little bit more leeway. As far as like, hey, can we talk? Because we're both supervisors. Whereas I may not have had to have certain conversations if I was, just a firefighter. But yeah, I still use a lot of the informal leadership, stuff that I used before, but I've been doing this my whole career. Not that I'm like, hey, look at me, I'm great at it. I've just naturally been doing it. So when I got thrown a lieutenant's badge, it wasn't, okay, how do I do this? It was, okay, how do I do it at a different level? And that's where the learning curve was for me. Like, I've been doing it at this level. How do I do the same thing? Now I'm wearing rank. And, so a lot of it's the same, some of it's different, but same kind of skills, I would say, for informal leadership.
And it is, even when you're in the captain's seat, it's still, you got a boss. I got a battalion chief. He's got the fire chief, and the fire chief has a city. I mean, everybody has a boss when it all comes down to it. Sure. And the same stuff applies. Your officer needs you. Well, as a captain, my battalion chief needs me. He needs me to have experience, knowledge, maturity, do the right thing, all the same stuff. It's amazing how informal leadership goes right into servant leadership and transformational leadership and any other leadership you want to talk about, whether you got rank or not. It's all going to be the same. It's all leadership. So man, it's been really good to hang out with you. I could do this for another hour for sure. But we try to kind of just lead into the book for those of you that have not read this book yet, that you missed it for this month or whatever. Pick up Jump Seat Leadership. It's always a great read. I called Josh kind of last minute, so I kind of threw him on the spot, but For those of you that are new to the book club as well, we always read, I don't want to call this a firefighter level book, but we read a lot of company officer level, chief officer level books in the book club, occasionally a tactics book. But in December every year, we're gonna read some type of firefighter level book, promotional stuff, or things like that. And the goal is in December, we want you giving books to your crew as Christmas presents. So it's one of those things like I was short on a book, short on time. And just like Josh said, his is a quick, easy, short read with big print, which I also appreciate.
Yeah.
As I read more books late at night at the fire station. But we called this one Christmas in July. And Josh, I really appreciate you being on here for Christmas in July and spread that Christmas cheer this month.
Love Christmas.
Well, I love the book, man. And really, you've done a great job. And I know a lot of the book club members were looking forward to this meeting. So again, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I always appreciate the opportunity to share. So it's great. Thanks.
All right, man. Well, hopefully we'll see you in Virginia soon, and we'll get a chance to talk again here pretty quick. But all right, I'm going to wrap up the official meeting, and I'm going to turn it over to the book club members if they have any questions. David, I know you do, so I'll let you on here in a second. But if you guys have any questions, and again, a reminder, the camera is technically still on, and if you want your stuff on the camera later on, I think a lot of these questions after the fact are always great. And the stuff that comes out. But if there's something you want to talk about with Josh and you don't want it to be in the filming later on, just shoot me a text or an email or whatever, let me know, or a Facebook chat thing or a message or whatever. But I'm going to turn it over to the group. And by all means, if you guys have anything for Josh, reminder, Josh is going to be running the writer's block meeting immediately after this. So David, how much time do you need?
That's kind of messed up there, Jesse. But,
I'm just messing with you.
I think I've got like 5 or 6 questions or discussion points, if you will.
The man is on vacation, David.
Oh, no, it's good. I planned for this. So. Plus, my computer will just randomly go dead if I really need to go. And then,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What's that, David? I can't
I'm
hear
like,
that.
I hate Zoom. This happens all the time.
It's like.
Yeah, perfect. That's exactly what happened. And then you'll see me slowly shutting my laptop.
Before, David, that was good.
Yeah, it was good.
I'm going to go check on my class for a while. You guys talk. I'll be back to kind of get writer's block started. Knock yourself out for a while.
Sounds good.
Well, I'll start with a question, and Josh, I'll tell you, I don't like to monopolize time, but at the same time, if people don't have questions, I'll definitely throw some at you. But so again, thank you for being on here. It's awesome. I enjoyed your book as I tagged you on Facebook and stuff. I think I've read it twice in the last month, just getting ready for today. But my first question to you is on page 5, I believe if I quoted it right, a promotion does not make you a leader. It merely puts you in a position of leadership. And as of that, one of the things that has always baffled me, and let's take a sidestep and say, I have been career on a small department. I'm currently a volunteer of a combination department. But my company does also work with promotions of municipal departments and stuff. So why isn't that feeling more prevalent? Because I feel like that, promotional assessments and promotions seem to be nothing but a business transaction, which to me takes away from the ability to be a true leader.
Right.
And so I guess, what is your feelings on that? And are there ways for us to take those people? I believe you were saying the name Ben, somebody like a Ben who is that next kind of unofficial chain of command, and include their abilities to lead at an informal level so we can add that into their score to be a formal level.
Right. No, that's a great question. So, and I think I answered a little bit of it, but I'll touch on a little bit of what I said and then add to it. So I don't think people understand fully what informal leadership is. And I think in order to be, one, people need to be encouraged, right? Like Ben, he's probably going to take the promotional text next time it comes up, which is great, because he realizes what he brings to the table. That's a big question as far as I don't understand why the promotional processes are the way that they are. It's very similar in our department. It's more of a business transaction, and as long as you pass the test and meet the qualifications, you get the job. So I have an issue with that when there's no follow-up training to getting promoted, which a lot of the departments there aren't unless you seek it on your own. Some do have development academies for young officers, and there are a lot that don't. So there are guys that rise to the ashes, but there are guys that don't rise to the ashes. So there's a lot of, I know Jesse mentioned firefighter level books, but there are a lot of books out there for chief officers and how to be an officer and how to do this. And I didn't want to write that book. I wanted to write a book to firefighters that was like, hey, just be good where you're at. Be awesome where you're at, because if you're awesome where you're at, then when you get that badge, it's not a bad transition. It's a learning curve, but it's not a bad transition. But as far as the processes go, I don't think there's really one answer for how to fix the processes. A lot of HR is involved in a lot of the processes, so leadership has become, I say this lightly because I wrote a book with the name leadership in it, but it has become an overused term, and like it means something different to everybody. And, I believe that if you're in a position of leadership, that you have the responsibility to lead. So I think really with all that goes accountability. So if you are promoted and you are now in a position of leadership, no, it does not automatically make you a leader. Can you choose to lead from that position? 110%. Will you have to have somebody hold you accountable to do that? It's a strong possibility if you've never, ever led anybody before. And I think honestly, like that all starts with leading yourself. If we can just do that, then I think, the fire service will be better for it. But yeah.
Well, I think you make a good point. And this is one that I've argued for some time now. And that is, and I don't believe this with you, but I think that there are those out there who their leadership is some kind of very theoretical, very Nirvana-esque type world type things. Rally around the flag, boys. We're going to get this done. Everything's great. Let's come on.
Right.
But we fail at more the practical, like you have been talking about, and is in the book. Because I also own an emergency services consulting firm. We do all types of work with our public safety agencies. And that's one of the things I always argue is, with my staff is sort of like you were mentioning with the situation in your firehouse and being, and if somebody walks in your door and says something, you have to act as the leader, as the officer. You can't take it back and everything. But I always look at it that if it's an easy decision, it should never come to me. That
Right.
shouldn't be, an employee of mine just a little while ago sat there and said, look, I hope you don't mind. I set up a meeting for you and me to go meet with this potential new client. He said, I hope I didn't overstep my bounds. And I'm going like, how is that overstepping your bounds? I mean, that's,
Right.
that's an easy decision. That shouldn't be my level of decision.
Yeah.
And things like that. But I think that unfortunately, the theoretical leadership, I guess you would say, is the more sexier term or sexier topic per se, but it doesn't get us to where we need to be.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think if I had to add a chapter to the book, I think I would have written a chapter on building relationships, because it's huge. You can't walk around and be an asshole and expect to, be a good leader. You might be great on the fire ground. You might know your stuff, but, when you get back to the fire, we do spend a good amount of time in the firehouse, so that's another, I think, key component. And like you said, that the whole Nirvana-esque and all that kind of leadership you talk about, like, I think when you build relationships with your crew and you're relatable, they get to understand more about you as a person. And then you don't get that weird, like, okay, this guy's fake. You get to know him a little bit. For the most part, my guys know me pretty well. I'm pretty open. I don't walk around telling them I'm a lieutenant. It's on my t-shirt. I don't have to tell them. It's there. So I let them know who I am and what I expect, and I get to know them. But I don't walk around every day. Hey, I'm a lieutenant. This is what we're going to do today. Come on, guys. I'm more like, I'm a lieutenant. It's on my shirt. I'm riding in the seat. I don't have to tell you every day. Like, if I have to tell you every day, then we don't have a relationship if I have to tell you every day, and there are those type of guys, but I don't think I lead better than anybody else. I do what I think I'm supposed to do. And I'm not out here like, oh, my leadership style is better than anybody else's leadership style. I'm leading the way that I feel called to lead. I'm not, hey, this guy's not doing, just because I don't agree with somebody doesn't mean he's doing it, wrong. There's a couple of right ways to do things,
Well, then you would probably agree with something that I try to do. I'm not saying I'm good at it, but because especially in the fire service, we work with so many different types of personalities.
Right.
I mean, everybody. I think you would possibly agree, or maybe not, that our leadership has to change and ebb and flow in certain areas because those people are so different.
Right.
And they come from they come with baggage, if you will.
I'll tell you what, I've been a parent for almost 21 years, and I have a almost 21-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 14-year-old, and they are all completely different. I have, my oldest is a girl, my middle child is a boy, and my youngest is, she's my daughter. They're all so different, and I'm married. And so one of the best things for leadership is why don't you just be a husband and a dad for a little while and tell me how that works out. And not everybody, I'm not saying go have kids and get married to test your leadership ability. That's like terrible advice. But what I am saying is, everybody's so different. So it has helped me, like, okay, I know my daughter needs this. I can look at my son and be like, hey, what in the hell did you do that for? And he knows I'm asking because I'm concerned. I'm not calling him an idiot. Like, why did you do that? Like, you're going to get hurt if you, like yesterday, he was cutting the grass barefoot. And I was like, listen, maybe they do that in North Carolina, but we don't do that up here, because then I have to sew your foot back on. So, so I wasn't getting on him. But if I looked at my daughter and said, what are you doing that for? She'd be like, oh my gosh, my dad's yelling at me, and I'm not yelling. It's just tone. So same thing in the fire department, like you said. And I think that comes with building relationships. Like, it ebbs and flows. Everybody's different. And I've had to learn that over my career. Early on in my career, I treated everybody the same. If you didn't love the job like I love the job, you were a piece of trash. And that is the most disrespectful, arrogant asshole attitude you can have. And I had it, until I grew up a little bit and realized that everybody's different, and you got to get to know people. People are the way they are for a reason. It's not even because they want to be sometimes. It's maybe they've been through some stuff, but, it's, yeah. So.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because, you talking about, I also have 3 kids and married. I've got a 13-year-old daughter, a 4-year-old son, and a 2-year-old daughter. My 2 youngest are adopted because we couldn't have any more kids after our initial child. But when you say that, I start looking back at how I lead as a senior guy in the fire service and how I do it with my company. And, I started going like, wow, there, you made an interesting point, because I can see me doing that. It's like, okay, I know I'm weak here, as a father. And then I look at things I'm doing, with my company, I'm going like, I'm working on that at the business level as well,
Yep.
So it's just interesting you mentioned that, for sure. My next question is, and I'll ask this one and I'll seriously let everybody else take over as they want. You definitely have touched around this, but it's something that I've fought in a lot of different departments I've been in what I think. And that is, do you think that a fresh new recruit out of probationary school can be a leader and lead in the service?
So I think everybody has a gift to do something, right? I think maybe you could be a leader in your own right in a certain area. I think the way a fire department works is there's a hierarchy, whether people like it or not. You come in, you're a probationary firefighter, and for a year you're supposed to be learning. That's what you're supposed to be doing for an entire year, at least in the way my city works. So I'll speak about it from that perspective. So you come to my station, whether you're 18 years old or you're 45 years old, you're supposed to be learning the fire department for a year. Can that person be a leader? They may be a natural leader. Can they lead in certain areas? Absolutely. But are they a leader in the sense where they should be leading men into burning buildings or be the lead EMS supervisor on a gunshot wound? Maybe not, just because they don't have the knowledge to lead in those areas yet. Now, I've had guys come into the fire department that were former HVAC guys for 20 years, and we're on a call with an HVAC. Well, guess who's in charge on that call? Like, I'm the supervisor, but I know they'll be able to lead me through what's going on. So I think people can lead in their own right. They can lead in certain areas. If I have a guy that's a CrossFit trainer and he's only got a month in the fire department, well, I'm probably going to get him to lead our workouts, because I don't have knowledge in that area. So I think when you come into this job, you need to have a little bit of humility. Like I said, I came in here from the Army, and I didn't do it all right. It was a little bit of a challenge, but I had good guys around me and guys that had been in the military prior, and they helped me work that out. So I don't think everyone, I don't want to say everybody's not a leader, because I do think people are leaders in their own right, in their own areas. And there are people that will lead better than me in certain areas. I do think your first year, you just need to be focused on learning. There's no problem with you wanting to be promoted someday. Just your first year, let's just focus on just learning the job, and if you already know the job from another department, all right, we'll just get to know this department. And I think guys will just see, like, okay, this guy is actually, you could tell after a little while when you develop that relationship, with the person that I talked about, that, hey, they actually might be able to, lead a few things. So I just don't think that person should be focused on leadership. So right. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And you, while you're saying the comments and the response, I'm sitting there going, like, you just explained it exactly the way I explained it, is the fact that it shouldn't be their priority goal, and it shouldn't be something they can't lead at a global level, meaning, like you said, leading a company or something.
Right.
But people come in with knowledge, skills, and abilities that we don't have, and we have to take advantage of those. And I use, instead of a HVAC guy, I generally use a plumber or electrician. If we sit there and go to, smell of smoke or smell of something burning, I'm going to probably use that person as, and their expertise, just like you said with the HVAC. And so,
right.
I think that what I've seen is departments who don't allow for that, generally stifle the leadership later on in a person's career, because of the fact that they have not let them even get the least little bit it takes. One of the things I do, like I said, I'm a senior guy. I've been a lieutenant before. Apparently I don't play well with others, because I try to do the right thing for the right reasons, and I'm not always looked very well upon for that. But, there's times where I'll sit there and we'll go to a fire alarm, and we'll get there and I'll find, we'll confirm that it's, it's not burning. There's something going on. And I'll sit there and let one of the other guys, younger guys, take command, because right. I know that they're given that chance. Are they sitting there leading somebody into a burning building? No, but they're having to make small level decisions about, okay, I'm going to send these two people up to go to that room that we just were in and see if we we reset the system, it does this, or, hey, we got to do this. I'm going to let, for example, a great one I use a lot of times is, if I'm command of a motor vehicle crash with entrapment and pinning, if we have a fatality, that's pinned in, most of the time I'll sit there and let somebody that's younger step up and take the lead role, in extrication, because it's not going to hurt anything. The person's dead. We're just got to get them out. And I'm still right there, but you're still giving them little bites to say, okay, at the right time, you get a little bit of this ability. So later on, 2 years, 3 years, 10 years down the road, you build upon it. And I guess it goes back to what we were talking about a minute ago, building up that very practical leadership, and not the theoretical stuff that generally is more done in a classroom, rally around the flag boys. So
yeah, and like you hit the nail on the head. I mean, if you want to teach people to lead, you got to let them lead a little bit. They got to experience it, right? Like, I'm teaching my son to drive right now, but I got to let him drive. You know, I can't teach him how to drive by just sitting in the driver's seat the whole time. Like, hey, look at me turn the wheel. Look at me press the gas. You know, look at me turn the radio station. Look at me do the windshield wipers. I got to eventually put him in the driver's seat and sit in the passenger seat and look terrified for, you know, the next 20 minutes and be like, okay, we're going to drive from here to the park, you know, but where I'm not on the interstate with him right now because he's not ready. Well, I'm not ready. You know, maybe he thinks he's ready, but I'm not ready. You know, so I think it's the same way with, you know, firefight. And I had people do that for me. You know, I had a really good fire officer who was similar thing you're talking about. Like, hey, we're not going to kill anybody here. You're in charge. You know, or like, this isn't just about checking your acting book off. It's about, you got to be me when I'm not here. And, you know, helping me make decisions and let me lead small things. And then, you know, 2 days after I got cut loose as an acting officer, I had my first fire. My captain wasn't there. And I was like, okay, well, I'm glad he trained me, you know, instead of just checking my book off. But yeah, I think in order to teach people to lead, you have to let them lead. You know, sometimes they've watched enough to where it's time to let them step in a little bit. And I think, man, you hit the nail on the head when you said that. That was good. It was really good.
Thank you. And I'll shut up and let other people talk now.
Good questions.
Thank you.
Anybody got anything? Phil, Chris, anybody got any questions for Josh?
I think Dave asked them all. They were good though.
Oh, Dave always, like I said, he's like my de facto co-host lately.
That was good. I mean, you're just pulling stuff out of me. I like it.
He's like, I don't want to interrupt. I go, no, man, this is what this is for. I mean, we're connecting you to the authors of the books. You can read the book, but this is such a cool thing because they're like, okay, afterwards you get to talk to the author and you can ask them like, why did you write this? You know, right. And yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
I mean, it's just, I mean, and I enjoyed asking the questions probably more than anybody, you know, or answering or whatever, because it's just, you know, it is that one-on-one, the ability to, you know, to dive deeper down into subjects that, you know, as an author, you have expertise on. So it's awesome on my end. And Jesse knows that when we have this every month, just go ahead and reserve a few minutes for me.
That's okay.
I like it.
I'm all right with it. Okay, if nobody else has anything, you know, then we'll transition to writer's block meeting. But I'm gonna throw it out there one more time. Anybody got anything else? Speak now. Okay,